Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Got a busy day of sports to talk about. The Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards. Is this the end of the Timberwolves season? We'll talk about his injury, and then also some familiar faces are in new places. We'll talk about the latest Vikings acquisitions, but we're also going to talk about the Vikings who left. Where did they end up? Got to talk about Adam Thielen, of course, coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. And it starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Ron Johnson Show, and I'm your host, Ron Johnson. I'm going to have Sam Extra, my producer, join me in a bit, but remember, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started, and we know those parlays are growing crazy. All these teams that were not supposed to be here, FDU versus FAU. I don't think there's a person in America. I know for a fact there wasn't a person in America that picked those two teams to be playing for the Sweet 16. We'll talk about that a little bit, but at the top of the show, we have to talk about Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves. We've been talking about this playoff run of the Timberwolves, this new constructed team. When is Karl-Anthony Towns coming back? How will him and Rudy Gobert get along? Is Mike Conley a better solution to your star guard in Anthony Edwards than D'Lo, because you felt like D'Lo maybe didn't defer to Anthony Edwards as much? We'll talk about that. But before we do, remember, you can now find Locked On Sports Minnesota on Amazon Fire and Roku. Just download the Locked On Sports Minnesota app to get all your favorite shows. Well, Sam, it's one of those weeks, Sam, where the Minnesota sports world, this is the time where everybody turns their attention, I hate to say it, to hockey. And again, this is the state of hockey. I know everybody loves hockey. And the hockey team right now with the Minnesota Wild, they're doing great. They're possibly going to win the West. Kaprizov, they found ways to score with him being out. That was the question. Were there going to be enough points scored with him out? The answer is yes. So when you add another guy that really can go, when you add the Michael Jordan of the Wild, well, I'm not going to go that far. He's not Wayne Gretzky. But when you add, let's just say, the Anthony Edwards or the Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Wild, you are going to get production. But this is why people are focusing on hockey now, because the Vikings are done. Season's over. Free agency has been meh. But then we start to get lightning in a bottle from Anthony Edwards. He's putting up 30. He's putting up 35. He's going at people. They're winning games. Mike Conley comes in. He's starting to facilitate the ball, get Rudy Gobert involved. And then Anthony Edwards gets hurt. Anthony Edwards is hurt right now, Sam. And the Timberwolves are the 9th seed. And I know you said it was they're saying day to day. They said the same thing with Karl-Anthony Towns, and he's not back. And so, honestly, I've lost faith in that training staff. And one mistake shouldn't ruin a relationship, our relationship with the Timberwolves training staff. But for me, it does. It feels very meh. 10 games left. They're the 9th seed. They're basically a half game ahead of the Lakers and the Jazz. Pelicans, they're a game ahead of the Pelicans. I just don't feel like with 10 games left, they can hold on to it. Now, the Jazz are like, man, come on. Like, we wanted to be the 11th, 12th, or 13th. We're like, we don't want to be in the playoffs. We want an early draft pick possibility. But it's not going to work out for the Jazz the way the Timberwolves are playing. And so when you look at the way the Timberwolves are made up right now, without Anthony Edwards, without Karl-Anthony Towns, I just don't think Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert can get that done to keep them in the playoffs. Now, if they somehow are the 9 or the 10 seed and they play the Lakers, because I don't see the Lakers jumping too high, but who knows when LeBron comes back. LeBron will probably come back for that play-in game. LeBron does scare me, but the Lakers without LeBron does not scare me. They don't scare. So I think the Timberwolves could beat them. But then you have to go play either the whoever wins that 7-8 game. And I think that's going to always be the question mark is you could get the Warriors or you could get the Thunder. Now, again, the Thunder, I think they could beat the Thunder. I think they could beat the Thunder and be the 8th seed and go play the Nuggets. And I think they could beat the Nuggets. I think as a 7 seed, they can go beat the Kings. I am just not sure if the Warriors somehow end up 8 and lose to the Thunder because who knows what happens? Who knows who's healthy that night? The Warriors would crush the Timberwolves. But I don't know, Sam, what are your thoughts on this right now with Anthony Edwards being out?
Yeah, it makes me nervous. I look at the box score from the Raptors game. So this was played without Anthony Edwards, and the offense just lacks so much punch. I mean, they shoot 46% from the field, 22% from 3-point range. They've got Josh Minott logging big minutes. Love Jordan McLaughlin, but playing 24 minutes is a lot for him. Yep. And Mike Conley just can't reproduce what Anthony Edwards does from an offensive standpoint. It's not like he can put on his offense hat and say, all right, let's go to work. No, he floats around. He takes a spot up 3 when it's offered to him, but he's really not a natural scorer at this stage in his career. So it's not an apples for apples replacement. And now, Ron, it's not about the Wolves getting that 6th seed and avoiding the play-in. It's about getting the 8th seed so that if you can win that game, then you're in. Instead, if you're the 9 or the 10, then you got to win twice.
Correct.
So now you got to avoid being the 9 or the 10. And that probably means you have to beat Oklahoma City. You should be able to beat Oklahoma City, but without Anthony Edwards, it's all up for grabs. The Wolves haven't done themselves any favors. John Krasinski was writing that they haven't won at home, and they've been on the road a ton. Haven't won at home since February 5th, and they're losing all these winnable home games, oftentimes against beatable teams. So it's disappointing and concerning. And boy, if you're the 9 or the 10 and you have to go like LeBron and then Curry in those 2 games, I don't like their chances.
Yeah, when you look at the way the NBA is made up right now, there's like in the East, you have a true number 1 with the Bucks. And then the Celtics and the 76ers are kind of right there. The Cavs, Knicks, Nets, Heat, Hawks, to me, none of them are really scary. Like, the Nets at one point, I think, were with Kyrie and KD. Think about that, though. They had Kyrie, KD, and James Harden. And because of COVID, they never got a chance to really ever play together because James Harden got sick of Kyrie's mess. And he's like, look, your boy is not my boy. I'm out of here. And he dipped on KD. And KD was stuck with Kyrie. And then KD was like, all right, I see what you're talking about, man. Like, this is my boy. We boys. But it's like one of those things when you let your best friend come live with you and you realize he's an absolute annoying slob. And you're like, bro, I love you, but you got to go. You got to get your own apartment. You got to move out. Like, you're making my wife mad. You got your clothes. Like, Kyrie was he was a great basketball player or is a great basketball player. But he does bring a lot with him. The comments, the stuff he says. Because some things is like, you can have an opinion, but you don't always, because I always look at opinions and statements. What are you going to get out of saying it? Like, if you're going to change the world, if you're going to really take a stand, if you're going to Muhammad Ali this thing and change your name and do all this, go after it. But if you're just going to say stuff just to stir the pot, and you don't really have a I didn't really research this, I'm going to do the work to get to better myself. So that's why the East kind of flipped. And then what happened? Everybody ended up in the West. Other than James Harden going to the 76ers, you got Kyrie coming up to the Mavs with Luka. You got KD going to the Suns with Devin Booker. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then you still got the Grizzlies with their team, which I don't trust the Grizzlies. I think they're made up and they're not really great at putting games together right now without Ja Morant. Now they're getting it figured out, and he has an 8-game suspension or something, so he'll be back towards the end of the season and in the playoffs. But I feel like the Kings are beatable and the Nuggets are beatable. That's just my opinion. I truly feel like the Suns at the 4 and the Warriors even at the 7 are the best 2 teams in the West. And maybe I'm just old school and I'm looking at the past and I'm not looking at the current makeup of teams, but I just don't trust the Joker. Like, I just don't trust the way the Nuggets are made up. But again, sometimes it's about team. We said the same thing about the Bucks. Bucks found a way to get it done with Giannis. Everybody was saying he doesn't have enough. They don't have enough firepower. And they found a way. They got it done. Him and Drew Holiday, they went to work. And Chris Middleton, they went to work. So maybe I'm underestimating this Nuggets team, but I do feel like if the Timberwolves are 8, if with a healthy Anthony Edwards, I don't know about Carl. I don't know if they need Karl-Anthony Towns. I feel like they do because now you got Gobert on Jokic, and that frees up Cat to run around. And now you have, or vice versa, you got Cat on Jokic. Nah, put Gobert on Jokic because he's not fast enough dribble. And then you got Cat to free range as a power forward. And I think that's where the Timberwolves could have dominated teams. Cat would stay out of foul trouble because we know that was the issue too. He would get in foul trouble in games, and it was just they would get screwed over. But we haven't even been able to see it. So I just feel like the Timberwolves, I just don't know. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. Like, I just don't feel like they're going to make the playoffs. I don't know why. Like, again, they might lose to the Lakers in the first one, and we're not going to have the celebration. But when you think about this team, I think they have a serious off-season decision to make if this is the way they're going to go, the way this roster's made up, or if it's time to cut, trade, get some pieces. And I hate to say start over again because they have Anthony Edwards, but you got to find him somebody else. Like the way the NBA is made up, when you look at all these teams, other than the Nuggets, all these teams have multiple guards. When you look at the Grizzlies, the Kings, the Suns, the Clippers, everybody has that multiple, like 2 or 3, type of situation where it's the 2 guard and a 3, or the point guard and the 2, or the point guard and the 3. Like everybody has those. The Timberwolves are bigs. And that's the problem is when it's time to be Anthony Edwards and Connolly show. I don't know if Connolly's there. We thought D'Lo was the answer for that, but clearly he didn't defer enough to Anthony Edwards. Whereas like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, I don't think either has to defer to either. I think it's whoever feels it and whoever, like the coach says, take it. Whoever's who wants it. And whichever one says, if you want it, man, you got it. That guy doesn't have it that night. Give it to KD or give it to Booker. So I think that's what the Timberwolves are going to lack. We know Anthony Edwards can go at any time and has it, but being hurt, and even when he comes off the injury, Sam, who knows what he has left in the tank? Who knows if he can get it going? But, man, it's been a lot going on in sports, as I said. I mean, the Gophers have signed their new coach. They have a new coach, and we're going to have to talk about that. You look at the tournament. I mean, my bracket, now this is just me, and maybe every game I watch, Sam, I don't know about you, every game I watch, I felt like everybody was like, let's go opposite of what Ron picked. Because Kentucky, you should win. But I don't think you need to win today. Like, it was just literally game after game of like in the bag. Arizona State, you have the game in the bag. What are you doing? FDU.
I know. Oh.
Yeah, Arizona State. Like,
Arizona
what are you
State
doing?
Game.
Like, come on. You got the game in the bag. Just relax. Relax. And it's just stuff like that, man. It's just little games where I'm watching. I'm like, oh, okay, my team's up 5. They got this. And the other team finds a way every single time. That's what makes March Madness so much fun, to be honest. It is fun to watch. Like I said, with FanDuel Sportsbook, these parlays, putting things on the line, it does make the game a lot more fun. This challenge we have going right now, $100. Who best bracket, unless they have to beat a locked on host and they get the bonus $100. And so that's going to be interesting to see right now. I think our non-locked on person is the best right now. I think Arif is right behind them, Alabama. But Alabama is still in mine. I'm done. 2 of my Final Fours are out. Purdue. Like, what are you doing, Purdue? So we're going to have to talk about that in the next segment. Break down a little more basketball, talk a little bit of Vikings leading into the Daily 3, but we're going to have enough football talk this week. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Vikings leading into the Daily 3, just coulda, shoulda, woulda, what could happen with the Minnesota Vikings. But we'll do that, but we have a word from our sponsors.
Thanks, Ron. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the official sportsbook of Locked On and America's #1 sportsbook. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Safe, secure, super easy to use. And there were so many interesting finishes to games in March Madness over the weekend, Ron. There was an over-under that went under because of a missed dunk at the buzzer. TCU covered last night on a last-second garbage time 3 that didn't matter. Crazy stuff going on. You can get in the action at FanDuel.com/lockedon for that no-sweat first bet. Up to $1,000 back in bonus bets when the first bet doesn't win. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Well, Sam, let's jump out there. Talk a little Gophers basketball. You are very familiar with Dawn. And it was how do you say her name again?
Plitzer White.
Plitzer White.
Plitzer
That's what
White.
I thought. Plitzer White. So Dawn Plitzer White comes from West Virginia, and I've everything people are tweeting, and this is how it always happens. People always tweet right away how great of a acquisition this is, blah blah. The one thing I like about Coach Plitzer White is that she's taken teams and she's at winning, I think like 15 out of 17 winning seasons, somewhere 15 out of 16 winning seasons. She just took West Virginia to the tourney. The minute they lost, they hired her. Honestly, I hate to say this, but when you look at her, she looks like all the great coaches. Like she fits right into that mold of like a lot of the great coaches and a lot of the current coaches, like she kind of embodies that, like, and nothing against Lindsay Whalen. I think Lindsay Whalen more embodied like a superstar. Like I saw, like when you see Michael Jordan, you don't think Michael Jordan should be on the sideline coaching. I mean, I hate to say it. And that's why, even in the front office right now, it sounds like Michael Jordan's trying to sell off his stake in that team because it doesn't work. When you are great, it's tough to like watch mediocre play and build it. It's tough to do the necessary things with less than greatness. And we know Lindsay Whalen has always been great. She's always been the best player. She's always been on the best teams, gold medalists, medalists in the Olympics, made the Olympic team. I mean, come on, that's the best of the best. Won 4 championships, was one of the greatest players in basketball history. That's tough, but then she did go out and recruit a great recruiting class. And this is what I think about Plitzer White. When you look at the team she's going to have, she did go out and get a bunch of McDonald's All-Americans. Lindsay did. Coach Dawn, when you look at what she did with West Virginia, she took a bunch of, like, she built the program. Like, it was already kind of there. She's only been there for 2 years. But she took what a program had built, took those players, boom, and got a product on the court that was ready to win. So sometimes it's about scheme. Sometimes it's about strategy. Sometimes it's about understanding who fits where. And a lot of times, like for Lindsay Whalen, I guarantee it was always, I'm just better than her. I'm going to go beat her. And that doesn't always work. Like when you have Caitlin Clark from Iowa, you can play that way. When you have Paige Beckers from UConn, Dawn Staley, Diana Taurasi, you can play that way. You can say, look, I know my girls are better than yours. So I'm going to go out here and just do what I got to do. When you don't always have that and you're overmatched in certain areas, you got to find a way. And I think that's what the Gophers are going to get with Coach Dawn. So again, I said, whoever takes over Lindsay has big shoes to fill. Coach Plitzer White definitely has big shoes to fill. But it's going to be fun to watch because the players are here and they want it to stay. Now, again, anything can happen after the season's over. Girls might hit the transfer portal, but as of now, a lot, especially like Mara Braun, sorry, they all said, she said at least, I know what Lindsay was building. I'm here. I want to stay. But who knows if some West Virginia girls want to hit that portal and come to Minnesota. So we'll see. Because when you look at her team, they are tough. They are a tough team. They are strong. They are aggressive. Like, I like the way that team is made up. And so who knows if some of these girls fall. And I know boys basketball a little bit different than girls. You don't have as much jumping ship as you do in boys. But it'd be interesting to see what players she possibly brings in and how these recruits take to Lindsay Whalen being gone and now her in. But I don't know. You like I said, you have a lot of info on her. You followed her. What are your early thoughts on this hire?
Yeah, so Plitzer White coached at USD. That's where I'm from. That's where my dad taught. I grew up in Vermilion, South Dakota. So I know the landscape there a little bit. And while they did recently get new facilities, new arena, so that's really nice. But Vermilion is not a particularly easy place to recruit to. That's why SDSU, I think, kind of outshines USD right now, is just because Brookings is a better location than Vermilion. But Plitzer White found all these Minnesota girls, and they were maybe players that weren't recruited or weren't deemed able to play in the Big Ten. And she turned that South Dakota team into a powerhouse in 6 years. They made the postseason every year, whether it was the WNIT or NCAA tournament. Got them to the Sweet 16 2 years ago. South Dakota, and that's not a team that has a lot of track record being good at women's basketball, and got them to the Sweet 16. So that was a huge deal. And the COVID year that got canceled, they were 30-2. Like, they might have made a serious run in that postseason if that actually had been held. So her South Dakota work, to me, was unbelievable. The fact that she could turn these recruits who weren't, worthy, quote unquote, of playing at a higher Power 5 conference, and then basically going in and beating a lot of Power 5 conference teams in the postseason was really impressive to me. So I'm a big fan. Her son played for my alma mater, Vermillion High School. Big fan of him too. I love the hire. I love it. I think she's going to do great.
Yeah, I think again, I think, like I said, she just fits the mold of a head coach. Like, she looks like a head coach. She doesn't look like somebody is going to come in and, deer in her headlights. Man, I got to follow Lindsay. Like, she looks like a person that can follow Lindsay Whalen. I think that's you had to get a strong candidate, somebody that's already been in the Power 5 system, somebody that people can see as taking a Power 5 team to the tourney. And I think that kind of, for Mark Coyle, at least, that silences like oh man, you guys got rid of Lindsay Whalen. Lindsay Whalen wasn't happy. She didn't come to the press conference. Like, don't give me that crap of mutual separation. She wasn't happy. But she's a professional. She went about her business, and maybe in a couple years, 5-10 years, who knows how long, she'll be back around Minnesota sports. I mean, she'll probably be at football games for sure. Not probably. She will be at football games for sure. But I don't know how much early on she'll, be around for basketball. I know Glenn Mason talked about that when he got fired. It took him a while to even want to be associated with Gopher sports. And even Joey Harrington, talking about that. Like, that happens to a lot of us when we get cut from a team and from the NFL. We kind of just walk away from sports for a little bit. Like, it's just one of those things where it's a sour taste. And, Joey Harrington brought that up. So when you think about basketball, though, this tournament, and let's jump into the men's side of this, because we have the bracket. Sam, update the people on where we stand right now.
All right. There are, remember, 64 entries in the Win Ron Johnson's Money contest. If anybody besides the Locked On host wins, Ron pays out the bonus. Right now, our leader is Michael Tyndall. Now, that's great for Michael, but the problem is his champion is Purdue. Purdue's done. So I don't know. I don't know if Michael Tyndall's going to hang on to that lead. Up next, Kevin Walker. He's got Alabama. Elliot Troy has Arkansas winning the whole thing. They just upset your team, Kansas, Ron. So that's a bold pick. Eric Musselman's doing some great things with Arkansas there. And then our guy, Arif Hassan, is in fourth place. He's got Alabama. And of everyone in the contest, Arif Hassan has the most available points to him. He's got all of his Final Four teams still in the mix. That includes Michigan State, Texas, and UConn and Alabama. So he's got a really good-looking bracket right now. We'll see if he can hang on to it. And I know he's got some upset picks in there. Me personally, Ron, I'm in 20th. I've got UCLA winning the whole thing. And you, Ron, are in 31st. But you lost two of your Final Four. So that's where we stand right now.
I got 155 points right now. My max is 208. I'm done. Like, all my teams can win out, and I still can't win because I got 208, and the winner right now has 218. So I'm done. Like, I'm officially done. I'm going to watch with pleasure. I want mutual destruction though. Like, I'm like Harley Quinn from Batman with the Joker. Like, I want mutual destruction. Like, I'm like the Joker. Like, I wanted FDU to win. I wanted Princeton. I still want Princeton to win. Did Princeton lose though? I didn't even follow that. Did they?
Princeton won. They beat Reggie Wilson's Missouri team. So pour one out for Reggie, but Princeton moves on
to the Sweet 16.
To the Sweet 16.
Yeah. So they have to play the Sweet 16. Yeah. So I wanted like a Princeton FDU, to play for the, who's going to the championship. Like, I would have taken that. Like, I don't really care at this point. Like, I'm kind of over it. I'm annoyed. Purdue really let me down. Kansas let me down. Purdue didn't let me down as much though, because I had Duke beating them. But Kansas, like, come on, man. Like, the one, and I was so close because I was the only one when I was I think I looked at one point this weekend, I was 15th. I was the only one within the top 15 that had Kansas. So all I needed was Kansas to win, and I would have won it all.
Yep.
And Kansas just did what everybody does that I pick. They lose. So I should just start picking the lower seeds anyway, just to help the number one seed. I feel like I'm Drake. I'm the cooler right now. Like, I know the Drake the rapper, every time he bets on a team, like he bet on Alabama when they were number one and they lost. He finds ways like you're just going to lose. Like Kentucky that one year. He was all over Kentucky, went and, he was doing warm-up lines with Calipari, bet on Kentucky to win. They were the odds-on favorite because of how many NBA players they had. They lost. Like, it's just that's what Drake does. He's a cooler. He kills it all. But this is one thing, Sam, when we talk about takeaways from this tournament, I'm very surprised. FAU got away. I don't know if you watched the FAU FDU game. It was probably the most exciting game of all of them because it was nonstop, full speed. But FDU showed where Purdue screwed up, and FAU also did. FAU has a big just like Purdue. And early on, FDU was taking advantage because number 11 was the tallest player. This team is the shortest team in the country. And what they had their big coming out trying to guard him, and he was the worst three-point shooter, but it wasn't like he couldn't shoot threes. He's just the worst of the starters, which means nothing. They're all 6'4", 6'3", so they're all shooters. And when you're 7'4" or 7 feet, you don't like playing up top, especially against a guy 6'4". And so they were slacking off, and he was knocking down threes against Purdue. Purdue never changed it up and played small ball, and that's how Purdue lost. Well, FAU's like, all right, get them out. And they bought another 6'8". Now, 6'8" is still a little bit, but 6'8" to 6'4", you can work with it. And then that's when FAU started to get a handle on the game. It was back and forth the whole game, but FAU just say, look, we got to get our big out. Like, because when we go into the post, they're all attacking them, and they don't care if we shoot a three. And so they're going for that steal. And so that's why FAU, I hate to say it, they outcoached FDU, and FDU outcoached Purdue. Purdue just got outcoached. Like, at some point, he should have realized my 7'4" guy is null and void right now. Playing a team where the tallest guy is 6'4", I hate to say it, big boy, you got us here. You were great all season. We got to sit you down. We got to bring you in spurts, but we can't leave you in the whole game because they are running up and down the court, and you're barely getting up and down the court as fast as they're going because they do a hockey, and that was the other cool thing about this, Sam. They do a hockey line change. Like, he literally subs 5 guys out. I get it. When you're all short anyway, it's like, look, just go in and play defense. I'll take whatever offense you can get, but I want you guys to be really, really ready to go and steal these balls on defense. Hockey line change. It's not normal, but it worked. They knocked off the number 1 seed again, second time in NCAA history, and almost first ever 16 seed to make it to the final, to the Sweet 16, but they didn't do it. FAU wins. That was the one for me. Was there a game for you, Sam, that kind of you were like, man, this was not what I expected? It was a great game.
Man, a lot of great games. I'll just echo first what you said about Edey. If I was a Purdue fan watching the end of that FDU game, I would have been so frustrated because when you're 7'4", I think you sacrifice some coordination sometimes. He couldn't catch anything. No. He couldn't, like, if you're 7'4", you better clean up every offensive rebound. And he couldn't get a rebound in traffic. Yeah. He couldn't catch the ball in traffic. He was killing them late in that game. So if I'm Matt Painter, I'm making a move. I'm taking him out with 4 minutes to go. If I'm in a tight game with the 16 seed, I'm not taking any chances. So the guy that's got the cold hand, I'm sitting him down. And I'm absolutely what you said, Ron. So that was bizarre. Over the weekend, I mean, there were great games up and down the dial. Like, I thought the Kansas-Arkansas game was awesome. Not for you. You were hating every second of it, but Eric Musselman and Arkansas, they're always like a 6, 7, 8, 9 seed, and they give so many teams trouble. They play so well in March, and Musselman's ripping the shirt off after the game and firing up the crowd. Arkansas just plays really hard. Yeah. So I guess I should have maybe seen that one coming, but I'm all in on Michigan State. I've got them in the Final Four. They knocked off Marquette yesterday. 2 more rounds to go, and I got that one right. That would be big for me. So I'm feeling the vibes of Michigan State. They need this one. Tom Izzo, he's an amazing March coach. So go Sparty.
Yeah, because Trey Holloman, I know he went to Creed-Durham Hall. He's at Michigan State. Doesn't play much, averages about 2 minutes a game. But even just watching him get 2 minutes a game, I get it because it's about, like, you look at the past history of Michigan State point guards. I'm not Magic Johnson because he's a GOAT. He's a unicorn. But you got Mateen Cleaves, then you got Cassius Winston. You got all these little small, Appling. You got all these little small point guards that they end up in Izzo's system, and then they become these, really good point guards. Not always NBA guys, but really good point guards. And I get Trey Holloman being out of Minnesota, but I just wonder why not Minnesota when you could have played, 15, 20 minutes a game and probably been, the either the starting point guard and let Taylon Cooper be the 2. I mean, there's a lot to be thought about there, but again, that's a totally different. But yeah, Izzo, man, he constantly is like, he's like, it doesn't matter what seed he gets. He's going to end up in the Sweet 16 and probably the Elite Eight at this point now. When you look at how that team made up, how they play, how hard they go, it's a joy to watch. It's annoying, but also it is, and this is why it's annoying. Because when Michigan State loses to Purdue or they lose to, like a Maryland, and so then you don't have faith, or a Penn State, you don't have faith in the Big Ten, and you're like, man, they're not gonna do anything. And so that's why, honestly, I picked Michigan State to win one game, and I'm like, they're gonna lose. Also, I didn't think the other seeds would lose that lost, but I'm like, they're gonna lose. But I always forget, Izzo's built for March. Michigan State is built for March. They're not built for December, January, February. They're built for March. The way he works them, the way they get ready, they're built for March. And he's like the Nick Saban of football. Like, he's a name that you forget about for most of the season, doesn't do any big splashy moves, and then all of a sudden, boom, here we are. One of the greatest teams in college basketball history. So the next, like, what is that? Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm gonna watch, like, and Sunday probably. I'm gonna watch, like, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna be super like pissed off now, because I mean, at this point, I do want Alabama to at least go so I can at least get 2 of my Final Fours in there. But at this point, again, my max is 208 points. I don't even care. Like, I just want to see destruction. I want Princeton to win and go to the Elite Eight. Like, I want people I want nobody's brackets. That was great too, though. When FDU won, every single bracket was busting the world. Like, whatever, 21 million. I forgot how many they said, like 2.1 or whatever. It was like a ridiculous number of brackets. Like
20 million. Yeah.
It was something stupid. And all of them were wrong. Nobody picked FDU, which I'm like, thank you. Like, move on. Like, because I hate when, like, FDU wins or something like that, and everybody's like, we have 4 perfect. I'm like, what? Who would have thought Fairleigh Dickinson? Come on. Like, Farley Dickinson, there's no reason Fairleigh Dickinson or Farley Dickinson. Like, no, you did not think they will win. Like, if they had that team winning, they literally picked off letters. Like, whoever has the most letters in their school name. I might do that next year. That's what I should do next year. Whoever has the most letters in their school name is going to win that game. So for Purdue versus Duke, Duke loses because Duke only has 4 letters. Like, there's got to be a formula to this. I don't know what it is, but I'm just annoyed. I'm sick of it. This is another crazy stat before we jump into the daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each, and we get a word from our sponsors. I just saw something crazy that said Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, and Kentucky. This is the 4th time that none of them have been in the Final Four. Or, sorry, Sweet 16. The 4th time in history since, like, 75 or something. I forgot when they said this thing started, but this is the 4th time you haven't had at least one of those blue bloods, Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Duke, in the Sweet 16, which is crazy. It's happened 3 other times. I think it was like 1976, 1979, and then 2021. That's the only times you have not had those 4 blue bloods in the Sweet 16. And so I'm like, man, that is crazy. Like, but also maybe it speaks to the way the scope of college basketball now, like, recruiting has changed, NILs. I mean, did you see Tom Izzo's post-game press conference? The quick one. He said, like, hey, you got a point guard, because number 22 from Michigan State, he recruited him, I think, out of New York. And he said, hey, you got a point guard from New York. And we know New York point guards are known to be great. So you got a point guard from New York. Yep. You guys are going back home, blah, blah, for the Sweet 16. And he's like, yeah, man, I can't wait to get back. He's gonna take me to the best pizza spot and he's gonna use some of that NIL money. I'm like, so he could just throw that out there in the press, like, he's just letting all the other kids know he's recruiting. Like, hey, you're gonna have enough money to take coach out for dinner in the Sweet 16. Like, Izzo was slick with that one. I'm like, because I haven't heard a lot of coaches use that in their presser, but he's like, yeah, he's gonna take me out for pizza because he can use some of that NIL money. I was like, oh. Well, okay,
I guess we're talking about it then.
So it's a great, like PJ Fleck always says, there's always a gray area with the NCAA. That's the gray area. You didn't say I couldn't bring it up in a presser. You just said I can't tell kids about the NIL structure, or I can't offer NILs as a coach, but I can talk about it. I can bring it up in my press conferences. So, and all those kids that are getting recruited by Michigan State for next year, they're watching this right now. They were watching, probably the kids that committed. Because you don't want the Dennis Evans situation to happen. So even your committed kid, hey, he's taking me out for pizza in New York with his NIL money. So Nick Saban, I like what you did there. I see what you did there. But hey, people, remember, you can check out the Minnesota Football Party 4 days a week from Monday to Thursday. Get your Vikings fix with Arif Hassan, Luke Inman, Luke Braun, and Sam Ekstrom on Locked On Sports Minnesota. And we have a word from our sponsors.
There is still time to check out BuiltMarchMadness.com and vote for your favorite Built Bar or Built Puff. Cookies and cream puffs? Heck yes. Support them. Vote for your favorite. Support your favorite bar or puff at BuiltMarchMadness.com, and you enter yourself for a chance to win a free box of Built, one of 50. Be one of 50 lucky Locked On listeners, or be the one person who wins a 12-month subscription to Built. Have them delivered straight to your door. You got to try Built. They're the best protein bar ever with amazingly high protein, low sugar, and 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They nail it every time with all these new flavors at Built.com. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff. And hey, pick up a box while you're there. You can still vote every day in March. Hop on and support your pick.
Well, now it's time for the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. We're going to have a little fun with this. Take it away, Sam.
All right, we got some football to get into. The Vikings have signed defensive lineman Dean Lowry from the Packers. How you feeling now, Ron, about the Vikings defensive line as of today, keeping in mind that we still don't exactly know what's going to happen with Za'Darius Smith. We don't exactly know what's going to happen with Danielle Hunter, but how are you liking it right now?
Well, I mean, it seems like the Vikings are trying to get those pieces in. We already talked about the corner in Byron Murphy. They got Dean Lowry. And so when you watch Dean Lowry, they have him listed as a inside D lineman. They have him listed as a DN as well. When you think about that Packers defense, he wasn't like a true outside linebacker because he's bigger. He's 295 pounds. He's more like a 5 technique. Like he plays like a DN, but wide. Like he's wide in the 3-4. So what happens there? So it's 2 things to this. One, I'm guessing his alignment goes by situation. So if it's a passing down, for sure, he's as wide as possible. Because like you said, you brought up some of the things he did against the Vikings when you and I were talking backstage. And so when you think about that, when you think about him being in that wide, because I watched a little bit of his highlights just to see, and I watched a little bit of Packers film quickly just to get an idea because I'm doing something for Vikings.com. And he's a guy that can actually play 3 because at basically 300 pounds, let's go 295. Like during football season, you eating, you're not working out as much, as the season goes on. Like you're not in the sun running hard. You're trying to get through the season at this point. He's going to be a 300-pound guy. So he's a guy that can be an explosive, strong 3 technique. He can be the guy that can create pressure up the middle. Not a 340, pound run stopper like your traditional Dalvin Tomlinsons, your Linval Josephs. He's more of a Aaron Donald version. Like he can move between guards. He can move between the tackle and tight end. Now, can he stand up at 295 pounds? I don't know. Like I haven't watched enough film. Maybe he does for those that are more familiar with his game. But the one thing I will say is when you watch him, he's explosive. He's smart. He gets after the quarterback. And I think in this, like I said, in this defense, if it's going to be about creating pressure, creating havoc, and playing a little bit of basically zero coverage at times, that's if he's going with that Miami Dolphins style of defense, Dean Lowry fits. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of envisioning now the Vikings with all these guys. Like, what if they keep all of them?
Yeah.
I mean, suddenly you've probably got too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't think they will. I just don't think there's enough reps to go around for Marcus Davenport, Za'Darius Smith, Danielle Hunter, and Dean Lowry, and Wanham and Patrick Jones. Like, you do have other players. But even if they lose one of them, if they trade Za'Darius Smith, they've still got a pretty fearsome rotation. And I think that it's kind of an arms race on the defensive line. You got to have more than just your starters. You got to have depth. You got to have 8 dudes that can come in and harass the quarterback, kind of like San Francisco's had for several years now. And Kwesi understands the importance of bolstering that pass rush. So I like what they're doing, and I like these contracts. I'm seeing the details. Ben Gessling's have been all over the contracts. They're very friendly to the team in year 1, and they're somehow staying under the cap here, Ron. At least I think they need to make one more big move to really be cap compliant. But I like what they're doing with these kind of mid-range, slightly on the cheaper end contracts to get in some veteran players. I kind of like the strategy.
All right, yeah. What you got next?
Yeah, well, speaking of veterans signing contracts, Adam Thielen has signed with the Carolina Panthers for a 3-year reported $25 million deal. $14 million of that is guaranteed. What do you think of the fit, Adam Thielen, a Panther?
I think it works. You look at Frank Reich, he's coming from the Colts. When you look at what the Colts had and the players they had and that offense, Frank Reich was under Jim Caldwell. So when I was there coaching with Tony Dungy, Frank Reich was there as the offensive assistant. I was a intern. The next year I came back as receivers coach under Jim Caldwell. Frank Reich had become quarterback coach at that point. So when you look at who Frank Reich learned from, Tony Dungy, Jim Caldwell, two kind of, different mindsets from offense to defense, but also the same guy. But then what did their offenses look like? Very, very basic. And when I say basic, I mean, use your best players and let's not get crazy. We got a quarterback in Peyton Manning. Let's do these routes. So basically slants, hitches, curls, comebacks, traditional stuff. Like you're not going to see the Panthers try to get into this new age offense. I don't think Frank Reich is that guy. Frank Reich is old school. I mean, he goes back to his Buffalo Bills days. So I think it's a great fit for Adam Thielen because Adam Thielen is an old school receiver. He's a run the best routes, get off the line of scrimmage, get upfield, curls, comebacks, hitches, slants. Like he's a traditional receiver. And so I think it's a really good fit. One, he's a leader. He's a captain. He's going to be a veteran voice in that huddle because you're going to draft either C.J. Stroud or Bryce. I mean, unless Anthony Edwards or Anthony Richardson is the guy. You could have C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. But again, it could be Anthony Richardson. And if it is Anthony Richardson, who could be a Cam Newton eventually, I think having Adam Thielen there to help that young group grow. You got rid of DJ Moore for the Bears. I liked it. And they still have a lot of money out there. Like they're going to have a rookie quarterback. So they still could sign DeAndre Hopkins or Odell Beckham or something too. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get another big receiver to help out this young quarterback. There's still tight ends on the market too that are big time veteran tight ends. So not big time, but really good tight ends that are still out there. So I could see that happening for them, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? And I'm happy for Adam Thielen, like, because everybody was questioning, like, oh man, the market's cold. Like Adam Thielen's, because even we felt like that. We hadn't heard much Adam Thielen visiting teams, and so we had that feeling like, man, why is Adam Thielen not like? Why are we not getting the Adam Schefter? Like Adam Thielen visits the Texans. Adam Thielen visits the Raiders. Adam Thielen, it was cold and quiet, but maybe that was Blake Burrett's his agent. That was his deal. Like, hey, let's keep this on the hush hush. So we don't create a mass panic of people thinking they got to pay a lot to get you, or we're gonna create a weird like, oh well, you already going there. He kept it quiet, and then all of a sudden pops up. He signs with the Panthers. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think about $8 million a year. That's about what I felt like he would be worth on the open market. I think that played out. I'm looking at the depth chart for Carolina. He's not competing with a whole lot of dudes at the wide receiver spot. Laviska Shenault and Terrace Marshall, who's a good player, but remember they traded DJ Moore, so they needed wide receiver help. Yeah. Could be some growing pains in year one with the new quarterback and Adam Thielen, adjusting to a whole new offense, a whole new, rookie quarterback. He hasn't really had young quarterbacks in his Vikings career that he's had to work with. So it'll be a change, and I'm intrigued to see how it goes. I believe the Vikings and Panthers play each other. So circle that one on the NFL. Oh yeah, schedule.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun. I will say from a cornerback standpoint, there's not any corner probably that's going to have a relationship with Adam Thielen. So, Byron Murphy and whoever else is on the other corner. But Harrison Smith, Adam Thielen, be interested to see if Adam Thielen comes across that middle. Is Harrison Smith going to buddy, or is he going to lay the wood to him and say, I told you when I get a chance to hit you, I'd hit you. Because that's always a conversation when you get to play your boy and you couldn't hit him when you were teammates, and now you can put a lick on him. Last one, Sam, what you got?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask about, March Madness upsets. We kind of talked about that. So let me run this one by you, another Vikings related. So this is a quote from Jeremy Fowler at ESPN. He said on an ESPN program, when you talk about good fits, I asked some executives around the league what teams would make sense for Lamar Jackson.
Yep, I saw that.
Even a wild card like Minnesota. Kirk Cousins has 1 year left on his contract if they want to reestablish their identity. That's not an airtight report, probably more of a rumor or speculation, but Lamar Jackson being whispered as a possible Minnesota Viking. What does that make you feel?
It just makes me feel like it's rumors. But this is what I do say. Like, if Kirk Cousins truly, if they're not going to extend Kirk Cousins a long time, Lamar Jackson is young. I don't mind it. But this is where I go with that, though. When you talk about this offense as far as a true passing offense, Lamar Jackson isn't a true passer. So you're right. If he does do this, Kevin O'Connell, but Kevin O'Connell did not say he wanted to be the Rams. We all said that. We all assumed. But I think he looked at the pieces in that room and said, look, I don't have 2 tight ends. Like, I don't have it. I got 3 receivers. So I got to go with the best on the field. And that's why I appreciate what Kevin O'Connell did. He took what he had and said, let me put an offense together with what I have. Because so many coaches come in and say, this is my offense. You're going to run it. I don't care what you. Now he went out and got him a big blocking tight end. So my guess is we're going to see a little bit more Shanahan. Like, we're going to see a little bit more of that Shanahan 2 tight end, strong downhill run game. And so a guy like Lamar Jackson becomes an additional running back in that situation. When you look at the Eagles' success with Jalen Hurts, I wouldn't be opposed to it because, again, you add a running threat to this offense and the offensive line who could use a quarterback that can make people miss if they can't get those blocks and extend plays. But you got to remember, Hollywood Brown left and went because he felt like, you know what, I'm not a focal point of this offense. We don't throw the ball enough. So I would hate for Justin Jefferson to feel like that. I would hate for him to come in and, you know, him and Justin Jefferson aren't on the same page, but also Lamar Jackson's never had a Justin Jefferson. So again, is it the chicken or the egg? You know, like, is Lamar Jackson the way he is because he's never had a true number 1 receiver, or are the receivers not who they are because Lamar Jackson doesn't really have an accurate 100% arm who's going to sit in the pocket and just want to throw the ball? That's we'll never know. And so, yeah, I'm okay if the Vikings do that and they can get Lamar Jackson signed to a price that they think. I just would hate for them to spend $200 million on him and then it screws them over because they can't keep guys like Justin Jefferson. But again, that's just my thoughts. What are yours?
It would be really, really fun. It would be something totally different for Vikings football, and I think he'd be beloved, and I think people would rally around him. I do have concerns. Like, I've kind of fallen in love with the idea of having that rookie quarterback money, which I think is how you really can build a championship window if you pick the right guy.
Yep.
With Jackson, you're basically trying to eliminate the risk of drafting the wrong quarterback, and you just get one who's already good. And I also worry about injury concerns. I mean, he has broken down the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. He's a very mobile quarterback. He takes a lot of hits. So I do worry. I do worry about that piece of it. Having had a quarterback who plays every single game for the last 5 years, that would be a change. You would suddenly have to worry a lot about your backup quarterback. Who's that going to be? Right. So red flags, certainly, but it would be very exciting. And I'm all for having fun, and football's fun. So that would be amazing if it happened.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. I think that would definitely be buzz. Like, if you want to create buzz around town, maybe sell more tickets, even though there's tickets are selling anyway for the Vikings. They have no issue with that. They sell out. But that is definitely a way to create some buzz around that program and Kevin O'Connell. And then with this defense. But again, I don't know what this defense requires. Like, some defenses require an offense to be able to stay on the field for longer. Some defenses are like, look, man, you can go score as fast as you want. Our defense is good. So we don't know. Brian Flores is new here. We don't know what, like, Miami had the pieces, but we'll see what the Minnesota Vikings can do with that. But that'll do it for us today. I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. I'm excited about the rest of this week, though. We got Theo John, NBA G League player, NBA draft pick, played at Duke, Marquette. We know Minnesota's own, went to Champlain Park High School. And then James Theus from Detroit, Michigan, played at Martin Luther King High School, went to Syracuse and played under Boeheim, ended up leaving, and we'll hear his story because it's a great one. He leaves because of family stuff. And then that next year, Carmelo Anthony comes in and wins the national championship, which alters, what his life could have been if he had been the starting point guard with Carmelo Anthony. And he talks about that. So I'm excited to get those two on the show this week. But that'll do it for us today. I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. And remember, people, if you want endless Vikings talk, make sure you subscribe to the free Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel, where you can find all of our videos, all of our shows, and instant podcasts after every game. And the Vikings press conference delivering all the biggest news. Just like our videos, and leave your thoughts in the comment section. I want to thank you. Have a great day.